right, hello on this fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time. Just one more Sunday of Ordinary Time before we get into the Lenten season. And I'm assuming most of the people who are listening to this are my parishioners or people from my past assignments who asked me for whatever reason. Maybe it's an act of penance for them. I don't know, but the post my homilies online. So I guess where I'm getting at is most of you are living in the Northeast with me, and it is bitter cold. And I don't know about you, but I'm done with this winter weather. And actually, I'll be away starting tomorrow. I'll be away for the week, and then a much warmer place, hopefully, and just a little break before we get into the Lenten season. Don't worry, I still pray, still say mass, still do all those priestly things and pray for everybody, even when I'm on a little vacation. But looking forward to it. And so let's talk about Matthew's Gospel. Like I said, we have just one more week of the ordinary time cycle of Matthew's Gospel, and then we get into the season of Lent, which will be, we'll get the temptation and the transfiguration from Matthew's Gospel. But anyways, so Matthew's Gospel is broken up really, I would say really into 6 parts, but the first 5 parts are kind of divided by Jesus' sermons. He gives these long, lengthy sermons 5 times in Matthew's Gospel, and 5 is no accident. If you know your scripture, you know first and foremost that Matthew's writing to a mostly Jewish Christian audience. And on top of that, a very important really set of books would be those 5 first books of the Old Testament called the Torah or the Pentateuch. And I think it's no accident that Matthew breaks up his gospel into those 5 long sermons of Jesus to mimic those 5 books of the Pentateuch. The 6th part of Matthew's Gospel then being the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. So that's part 6 there. So we're in speech 1 of 5, or sermon number 1 of 5, which runs from Matthew's chapters 5 through 7. So we're going to get one more week of this Sermon on the Mount. That's what the first one's called, and then we get into the season of Lent. And we'll miss a majority of the Sermon on the Mount. Maybe we'll resume when we get back to ordinary time in the summer. But anyways, that's where we're at, okay? And it began last week with the Beatitudes. That's how Jesus begins the Sermon on the Mount. And the 2 things that I want you to remember about the Beatitudes is first and foremost is that they are describing one's present state. It's not something in the future. It's not something that we strive for. But Jesus is stating the present condition of those in the kingdom and the blessedness and rewards that await them. If not, they're already receiving them right now. Okay, so we're not aspiring to be poor in spirit. We're not aspiring to mourn. We're not, it's not like it's something that we're trying to seek, but it's something that we already are. And it's important which will lead into my second point, that this would have been contrary to the message that was given to other Messiah figures, okay? Other Messiah figures are going to want people with strength and power and so forth. But Jesus is really calling out the meek, the peacemakers, those poor in spirit, those who are mourning. He's saying that these are the people who are part of the kingdom, and these are the people who will be blessed. Again, something quite different than other Messiah figures who are looking for people to be able to overthrow the Romans and to establish a earthly, powerful kingdom. Okay, so that's important because now we get into the next part of the Sermon on the Mount. From the Beatitudes, Jesus describes the believers as salt and as light. Okay, so again, it's not something we will be salt, or we will be light, or we are trying to be salt or trying to be light, but we already are those things. And so what I mean by that is, if we look, like, for example, at the image of salt, okay, salt had three functions in the ancient world. One, to enhance the flavor of the food, which, we use that today. Two, to preserve the food. Okay, so obviously no refrigeration in ancient times. So how did they make meats and vegetables and seafood and fish? How did they make that last? They heavily salted it to bring out the moisture. And once you dehydrate the food, then things like bacteria and stuff that would grow into food, if we didn't do those things, they would be filled with bacteria and therefore uneatable. But drawing out the moisture and dehydrating the food prevents the bacteria from living, and therefore the foods are prevented from bacteria, and therefore they last longer. But the third, and this is very key here, the third function of salt was for destruction. Okay, a very common practice in the ancient world, when you wanted to defeat your enemy, one thing that you would do is salt the farmlands, and thereby nothing will ever grow on that land again. Okay, so the key in all this is, we are salt of the earth. Okay, are we going to be people who are going to enhance the lives of others, preserve the faith, or are we going to destroy the faith? Are we going to destroy the kingdom? So Jesus is really presenting two ways of life, okay? Those who are more meek and peacemakers, and those who mourn, have the ability in that condition to be an enhancer, a preserver of the kingdom, and thereby drawing others in their lives into the kingdom. But also at the same time, we also have the ability to destroy the kingdom, or at least destroy the kingdom for others. That's the whole point of scandal, right? How many people we know have had a bad experience with people claiming to be part of the kingdom, because them as salt was used more for destruction than for preserving or enhancing. It can be bishops, popes, priests, maybe one's parents who handed down the faith to them, or at least tried to hand down the faith, but they ended up being more destructive rather than enhancing or preserving. And the same can be with light too. Light can enhance the visions of others, to enhance the vision of who God truly is and of his kingdom, or it could be blinding, right? Too much light, overbearing light can blind others, and they can't see God clearly because of that. So in all this, the salt and light, it's not just good, it's also a reminder that the function of these things can also have a bad effect of people, okay? So as Jesus continues on the Sermon on the Mount, he's going to show us the way of life we need to choose. He's going to teach us about things about anger and lust and forgiveness and true worship of God. When we follow the rest of Jesus' instructions, we become that good type of salt or good type of light that will enhance people's vision, enhance their flavor of God, of Jesus Christ, and of his kingdom. So what type of salt are you going to be? How are you going to function as salt? Are you going to enhance, or are you going to destroy? May God bless you.